You're watching Taste of Victory.
Hey guys, welcome back to Taste of Victory, and we are gearing up for an exciting season of Digimon soon because not only is BT11 coming out, but that will be the format that is going to be used for Nationals. Huge exciting tournament, especially since this time it's going to be in person, so a lot of people are going to be training very hard for that event. So let's go ahead and see what people are preparing for with the BT11 tier list. Let's start off right away with some of the new decks and go back and forth between new and old. We're going to start off first with Galactimon because that's one of the decks I am excited for, as Digimon World 3 is my favorite Digimon game after Cyber Sleuth. I'd probably put it above just because of nostalgia, but I recognize the Cyber Sleuth is the better game mechanically. But anyways, Galactimon, the final boss of Digimon World 3. This deck is unfortunately not too good. I'm going to have to start off with a bit of a downer and toss this unfortunately right away at tier 3. Unfortunately, its support isn't too good. It's a really slow and clunky deck, and not in a way that it could really stall for time like D-Reaper could have potentially in the past. Venmon, the first card in the line, the rookie, is kind of just awkward. Instead of dumping things in the trash, which Galactimon needs in the trash later in the game, it puts them to the bottom of its deck. So there's no real easy, reliable way to fill up your trash, except with maybe Pride Memory Boost, but I don't even know if that thing hits any good play cost thresholds to play stuff for free other than your rookie off the top of my head. So poor ways to fill up your trash for Galactimon itself. Its memory cost reduction is only by 1 and only into its level 5s and 4s and only once per turn. For whatever reason, when your level 4 is 3 memory, so it's really slow, it's really clunky, the support is kind of weird, it just doesn't do too much. Once it hits the field, it has really cool protection, probably one of the most omnipotent protection we have in the game right now for a boss monster, but that's about it. You're just discarding 1 security every start of your main phase, kind of like Shiomon. It's not too much aggro outside of that, so you kind of just letting your opponent get free turns to set up and blow you out. It's not too great, unfortunately. Then we got Crossheart. So Crossheart's pretty cool. This thing did get nerfed with the ban list, unfortunately, but it is still a strong deck just because it's so fast. You're able to play this as a Rookie Rush style deck, and it's able to accomplish things on its own. It does get new support in the set, which gives it a little bit more aggression, but they're kind of awkward thresholds. Overall, it's still fast, it's still hard hitting. If you know how to pilot it well, I think you'll do really good into certain matchups. So we're going to put this towards the bottom of tier 2, the very bottom of it. I don't think it's awful, but I think it asks a lot of its player now, so there's just better decks that you would pilot instead. Bloomlord. This deck is great ever since the port in X3 because of the Hydramon card. It's great. It has so many tools, and it's pretty flexible in its playstyle. You do want to go wide, which unfortunately could hurt if you get played into a Death X-Mon. But there is ways where you don't go too wide, so not to give it too much of a free Death X-Mon, and still have a pretty potent board with strong effects. So you could go tall with your Hydramons and your Bloomlords. You could bottom deck stuff. You could get security attack +1. You could also get a wide field if you know they don't have a Death X-Mon at the moment or aren't running it, and then be able to chip away with your board and stuff once you have been all set up. It's a really versatile deck that is very strong, very easy to mess up though when you're piloting it and building your board. You have to be very conscious of how your opponent is playing and what decks they are running. Still, this is a very powerful deck that is able to pop off incredibly hard, so this is going to go in 1.5. I think you could absolutely make an argument for this to be in tier 1, maybe the bottom of tier 1. But I think because of its matchups into stuff like Security Control, Black War Greymon, Grandis, because of there's a lot of matchups where you struggle that are too important in my opinion. So I think 1.5 is a pretty fair standing for it. Then we got All Force. So this is a deck getting new support in Booster Set 11. So rather than supporting the old stuff, there is stuff you could definitely use from the old lineup to put in there. But ultimately, it's kind of creating a new playstyle where you are looping around with the deck with their Tamers, Rena, and its Unsuspend effect. It is a really cool deck. A lot of pieces you want to see and climb up to eventually start popping off and doing crazy unsuspend, swing again, gain memory off of your Tamers and stuff like that, your Inheritables. It's a really cool deck. A lot of people have been experimenting with how to play it. The Leo Force variants in the bottom has gotten very popular in Japan. I believe East started the trend here in North America too. Players adopted it after seeing his video on the deck profile on it and its recent tops. So yeah, it's a really powerful deck. It's able to keep up pretty fast with much of the meta. I think this is a solid deck. I am struggling to put this between 1 or 1.5. I do think this has a fantastic matchup into a bunch of the meta, where I think I would put this at the very least at the bottom of tier 1 because it's great and you can tech it to answer a lot of stuff in the format. I think if I had to come down to it, I would put this at the very bottom of tier 1, but I could totally understand the argument to put it in 1.5. It's a great deck, however. Then we got Exomon. Exomon as its own deck on its own, I truly don't think is too hot. I'm probably going to put this somewhere towards the top of tier 2. Unfortunately, we have 32 decks to go through here because I think all of this stuff is viable to some degree at some level. So we kind of have to speed through some of these decks. But yeah, Examon on its own, I think it's kind of slow for the format that has gotten rapidly increased with Black War Greymon and Allforce in it. However, once you get up to Examon, you do answer a lot of stuff very well. Like, Black War Greymon struggles to get over you if you have any DP boost, which really shuts them down for a bit. However, if they build faster or blow you out in the early game, you are in a lot of trouble. So I think, unfortunately, this thing loses too many matchups to be higher than the top of tier 2. Then we got Metal Garurumon. No doubt in my mind, this deck is still going to be tier 1, even with the new stuff. It absolutely struggles to Black War Greymon, no doubt, because your tamers are pretty important, it blows them up pretty early, but you just play around that. You hit the gas and build as fast as you can and try to OTK them before they can meaningfully get into any of their removal or start blowing your stuff up or build up their redirection and their blockers. So Melga is still a force to be reckoned with, absolutely incredible deck, gonna be tier 1 for sure. Then we got D-Brigade. So I'm going to put D-Brigade somewhere towards the bottom of tier 2, I would say, because the deck is fantastic. It has a lot of security control package you can rely on with its black option cards, and then you just rush down and have some good recursion. You now have decoy and stuff like that too. You could refill stuff with the new Darkdramon from X1. It's a great deck. I think it's always going to be some kind of evergreen tier 2 or a rogue deck at the absolute worst, because like it's great. You could rush down while also having your security buy you time. It's really annoying to your opponents, and it's hard to answer for a lot of things if they have to build up for removal. So Commandramon is always going to be a solid tier 2 deck in my opinion. Then we got Black War Greymon X. Personally, I believe this is the deck to beat in the format. This is going to be tier 1. At the top of tier 1. This is what you have to build to answer around. It's incredible. You have really good protection into a lot of the top decks in this format that would try to bounce you away. And then you can also just have that Hades Force option, which very easily can clear so many of your opponent's field. It's just ridiculous. Like, if you go into a Metal Greymon, they have a play cost of 8. So you play Hades Force for only 5. And then you blow up like Digimon or Tamers of up to 8 memory that the Metal Greymon had as its play cost. It's really good momentum, very powerful control deck, because not only can you remove stuff like that, you could also redirect, and you could also block, and you still have protection on top of that. Not battle protection, to be fair, so there is answers around it, but good luck if they're answering you otherwise, you know. It's such a good deck that has every tool. It's very fast, not terribly bricky, because you have so many searchers at the bottom end, you know, and then you have Cool Boy on top of it. It's way too good of a control deck and way too consistent. It's an amazing deck, the deck to beat. Then we have Blue Flare. So this one did get new support in the set. I think this is a pretty weird spot for it, because I think it has the potential to be honestly a really great deck, but with Black War Greymon running around, that kind of shuts it down pretty hard, especially with Allforce outclassing it, and like a lot of the other blue decks in general. Melga, Allforce kind of outclassing it in its main niche. So I would honestly have to put this, I want to say that depending if we ever got like a ban list that would hit some of the top decks, I think this could easily be a 1.5, like top of 1.5 deck. But for now, I'm going to have to put this towards the top of tier 2. I just think it's kind of slow and doesn't really have a place with its stunning gimmick right now, because everything's just going to hide in raising and blow you out. Sukamon. So this is a new deck introduced here in BT11. It's a really fun gimmick of turning your opponent's Digimon into Sukamon himself, referencing Digimon World 1. It's really cool. It's really fun. Unfortunately, it is just introduced in the set and it does not have good support. So we're going to have to put this towards the bottom of tier 3 right now, because it just doesn't do much. It's the bottom of tier 3. It's not consistent. It's not too big of a payoff for how much setup you need in its trash to activate its effect. It's just a fun deck, and hopefully it gets more support, because I love the idea at a conceptual level. It's so great. Then we got Armor Rush. I think Armor Rush is pretty decent. I'm going to have to put it somewhere towards the bottom of tier 2. I don't think it's awful by any means. It could definitely make it work. Because always that like rushing down strategy is just always, by the nature of only having 5 life against most decks that don't recover, it's always going to be inherently good. After that, you just have to like worry about being able to keeping your stuff on field, being able to unsuspend and swing for more games and all that stuff. It's nice. It does at least have protection against like the pops that a lot of Black War Greymon's options and when Digivolving effects have, but they do have that Metal Greymon, the normal Metal Greymon, to just de-Digivolve and then pop something on the field to get around your armor. So it's unfortunately not too hot of a format for it, but I don't think it's terrible inherently, so somewhere towards the bottom of tier 2. Not bad at all. Then we got War Greymon X. So War Greymon has always been really cool. We saw it win an Ultimate Cup recently. The deck profile is on this channel if you guys want to check it out. It's pretty good tools. You know, you got a good OTK options, but the problem is it's always struggled OTKing in comparison to something like Metal Garurumon and Grandis. They have way more consistent options to actually end the game, while War Greymon X is always kind of just missing that one swing. But I think a lot of people have been sleeping on it nonetheless, because like the options are there, and you'd also have really good control options, because frankly, you could just run a lot of the same base as Black War Greymon X and still have a pretty competent control deck with a little bit more aggro options. So like, this deck is not bad at all, and I think it's actually a pretty decent call. I'm gonna have to put this somewhere towards the top of tier 2 or the bottom of 1.5, just by the nature of being a BT9 deck, where a lot of these guys just ignore your opponent, you know, and they just kind of play their own game and do it very well. So I think if you have to take something, it's pretty decent. Then we got Gallantmon. I think Gallantmon is also surprisingly very strong deck. A lot of good removal, a lot of good aggression. You could really tech it out to whatever playstyle you want and to answer your opponent's Digimon. So you're gonna have to put this somewhere between 2 and 1.5. It's a hard choice. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff has really good protection, and a lot of stuff is a lot faster than it in this format, so we're going to put this towards the top of tier 2, let's say, somewhere towards the top of it. Then we got another new deck introduced here in Booster Set 11, and that is Mirage Galgamon. So a lot of Booster Set 11, you're going to notice, is mostly just going to be All Force and Black War Greymon X. This is a really cool deck, but it does not do anything on the climb up to its Mega. As you saw on screen, the Mega is very cool. It's an interesting floodgate that could constantly be annoying your opponent with the memory gain and kind of inherently plays into its own memory gain when digivolving. But the rest of this line is pretty bad. You don't really do anything. You like gain a memory, you become a blocker, maybe gain TP, stuff like that on the climb up. And all of this is based on your opponent's hand size. So in the early game, you're really not going to be doing anything. And like you're just digivolving up in the raising area, or they don't have 8 in hand yet. So like, yeah, this deck does not do much on the climb up. And once it does get there, it has a really cool boss monster, but like if your opponent removes it, you're kind of out of luck because like there's not much protection in this deck either. So this is a very okay deck that could potentially be really great in the future because I think its boss monster is genuinely great, but otherwise it's really mid and doesn't do anything. Then we got Grandis. Grandis is genuinely an unbelievable, fantastic deck for this format. I think it's amazing. I don't know if I would put it below or above All Force, but it's definitely somewhere here in tier 1 by the nature of being one of the most consistent BT9 decks. Just build your stack in raising, OTK, come out, clear your opponent's board with piercing and the suspending effect that Grandis Quagga X has. It's just incredible. Very explosive power and consistent in what it wants to do, however not too consistent, so like at least not in comparison to Metal Garurumon because it is stuck in green after all, which traditionally doesn't have too much good draw power. So we're going to put this towards the bottom of tier 1, but it's absolutely a deck to watch out for because once you hit enough big DP thresholds, you kind of just start beating over Black War Greymon. You don't really care about its redirection or blockers because you're too big for them to bother. You're just going to delete them, you know, when you swing. So very great niche there and having a good answer to Black War Greymon, so this is definitely a tier 1 deck. Then we got Dark Knightmon. So Dark Knightmon has gotten a couple of rounds of support now, and unfortunately it's still not too good. I don't think it got anything too impactful in this set, but like it did get some stuff just recently in the other set not too long ago. Unfortunately, this deck has not much going for it. It has good early game aggression with its level 4s and level 5s. It has good recursion, but notice that none of these things have save on them. Why would they do this deck so dirty if it's a Digi-Cross focused deck? But yeah, unfortunately, like you just lose steam really easily and you're not able to close out games too efficiently, even though you start off with a good push. So this is unfortunately a tier 3 deck. Not going to do much in any meta right now. Once again, we got a new deck introduced in Booster Set 11. This is Phoenixmon, which you can also kind of lump in with the new Marsmon cards as one archetype called Raid. Raid is a new keyword you see on screen, which lets you redirect your attack into something that is unsuspended. Unfortunately, Phoenixmon's payoff isn't too crazy. There is something there. In testing and in talking with other people, there is something that is so close to being there, dude. It is such a cool deck, very close to being competent and powerful, but unfortunately, it's just really not there. Because Raid is really kind of just mid as a keyword, at least as of the set, because like they could just swing, you know, their things isn't suspended to be able to trigger any of your raid-based effects, or their stuff gets deleted in security and you can't trigger your raid-based effects. Phoenixmon's line is pretty combo gimmicky centered with the memory gain and the tamers and the, you know, reviving stuff. It's cool, but it's just not there yet. Just on the cusp. Needs a little bit more support, but for now it doesn't really do too much fast enough, so top of tier 3 I think is pretty generous. I'm gonna put it. Then we got Alphamon. So we saw recently that this did take like a top 16 or flat out win. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I just checked. They got second at a recent regional. So like it's cool. Like the base of the deck is still really great. Or Ryukin is still a powerful boss monster. You just can't pressure as much as you used to be able to without the multiple security attack +1s. However, the deck there is still very good. I think this is a solid like tier 2 deck somewhere. Like it still has good potential. Minervamon, representing Minerva Loop. So we do get the new Minervamon introduced in this set that helps the loop out a little bit and able to establish good board presence. But unfortunately, like this is just not a good format for Minerva Loop in any way. A lot of the decks will just blow up your board. They're too fast or they don't care about what you're doing and you're probably going to be missing pieces compared to their way simpler stacks to build. Where they will already have this stuff set up. So it's unfortunately terrible meta for it. I don't want to put this like at the bottom of tier 3 because this is inherently a good deck. Like the cards are good, the strategy is good, this deck can be good. We just not have seen a format nice to it at all. Nowhere near best decks in the format. I'm gonna have to put this at the bottom of tier 2, at the very least above Crossheart, but Definitely not tier 3 because like I said, the cards there are good, solid strategy. I just think you have to put in way much more work than the other meta decks where they can easily beat you. So this is potentially good in the future. We just have to wait for the right format. For now, tier 2. Then we got Bagramon. So Bagramon, all that stuff has gotten support previously, and now they finally got their payoff. I don't know why they made this deck wait so long for Bagramon to finally be put into the game, and it's pretty cool payoff, you know. A really interesting removal. I believe the first we are seeing this in the game where the removal is simply putting your Digimon or your opponent's Digimon underneath another one of their others, which like a lot of stuff is not going to protect against that. That's really cool. Unfortunately, the cards to support the boss monster are really not that good. We've seen back in whichever set they were introduced in originally, they didn't really do much of an impact when they were introduced to the game, and they're still not going to. Like, this deck definitely can do stuff, but like, it's not going to be anything impressive. So it's not bad by any means. You have a good payoff, but this is tier 2. We got Jessamon here. So Jessamon is really cool. I think it's a really solid pick into this format. You have a lot of good answers into a bunch of the top meta decks. Like Melga kind of gets shut down by its full combo if you are on Genkumon. That is really useful to be able to, you know, to stop their bounce. And then you have gigantic blockers, so they can't even like brute force past your gigantic blockers. Stuff like that. Same thing with Grandis, except Grandis is a lot faster and doesn't rely on bouncing, so it's a little bit more of a harder matchup. But yeah, Jessamon, fantastic card. Once you set up your full board combo, it's kind of hard for anything to come back from, and you could definitely buy time. Like, this thing is able to, like, as long as you see the piece eventually, all your like memory gain effects, or rather that I think is cost reduction off of that option that they have, really helps you explode in one turn once you have finally seen your pieces. So this is truly a very sick deck. Like, it's great. I'm gonna have to put it somewhere in 1.5. It can absolutely compete. Then we got Imperial Dramon. Again, kind of similar to Command Dramon, kind of similar to Rookie Rush. As long as you're able to like swing aggressively at your opponent's security and not worry too much about the blowback, you are always able to be a decently competent deck just by the nature of having 5 security as your starting health in this game. Not much to say here. It's a really good aggressive deck, and you can put it somewhere in the middle of tier 2. It's always going to be somewhat decent. Then we got Fish, as a lot of people like to call this deck. It's yeah, Aggro, I believe, is the boss monster in here. You can see the card on screen right now. What it is it plays into the strategy of playing cards out of your sources onto the field and creating a big board. Unfortunately, not a very good meta for it, because your board would just keep blowing up Blackboard Greymon X. Other decks may just drop a Death X on you if they're still running it. It doesn't really do much. Unfortunately, it's really slow. Its payoff isn't too crazy. Crossheart isn't something that's going to be running around, so you don't need to really counter it, since they would otherwise play into your strategy. So this is like a tier 3 deck. Same thing with 4 Great Angels. Like, the deck is weird. Half of the line doesn't search each other. You're relying so much on one option card, and if you don't see it, you're kind of screwed. Like, this is just like so much potential to be good one day, but it's just not. It's a very mid-tier deck. We're not even that. We're gonna put it in tier 3. Then we got Lynx. So this is Hina, the dragons from the Digimon mobile game Lynx. They have on-play effects, but Hina lets you use them when digivolving. It's a really cool, fun, neat deck, and I really hope it gets more support someday, because not only is the alt art gorgeous, it's also a very fun strategy that plays that is so fun to pilot. I like it a lot. Unfortunately, lots of build-up. You're relying on one card and hoping to God you see it, so it's kind of just like mid-tier. I really don't want to say this is terrible enough to be in tier 3, because I do think it's really above those decks, but it's going to be somewhere at the bottom of tier 2, unfortunately. It's just not consistent enough, and especially into this aggressive format that could blow up your board, because Kissel's Hina's goodbye once Blackboard Greymon or Hades Force comes out. Then we got another deck that's kind of just OTK. It's always going to kind of be there. However, I think out of all the rush decks that are naturally tier 2 because of their rush nature, I think this is probably one of the weaker ones. Like, you are very piece oriented compared to other ones. You actually want to build the full stack, unlike Rookie Rush, Commandramon, and Armor Rush, where they can just start swinging at the level 4 level. So that inherently slows you down compared to the other rush decks, so I think that puts them below them automatically. But still, you can ignore your opponent's security once you are fully built up with the right cards, and you can just tear away the security in one attack, and then maybe end with a hybrid free game or something like that. So it's there, you know, it's a good evergreen strategy that always has some usage. If you're coping this deck, you could choose a lot worse decks to cope. Then we got Bielstarmon. Man, how the mighty have fallen. This was a cool deck when it was introduced, but nowadays it really does not do much of anything. Like, it's just so piece reliant. It's basically like kind of worse security control, because like their security is better and less conditional, and it's just coming out, and then you have to rely on it not only being in there to like slow down your opponent, but also to fill up your trash for your Bielstarmon. Otherwise, you're kind of just filling it all up manually, which could be really slow, and your Bielstarmon is not doing too much when you're playing it for those incredibly high costs. So this is a deck that requires a lot of setup for not too much payoff. It's okay. I'm gonna have to put this somewhere towards the bottom of tier 2, because I do think this is better than everything in tier 3, and probably a little bit more consistent than cross art. Let's be. I'm tired of being generous, guys. Then we got Imperial Dramon. Virus Mode, I believe this is like the evil Digimon from the Digimon Tri movies, from one of the movies. It's okay. Like, if you get this combo off, it's really strong. However, like, it asks a lot of you to get the combo off, especially in this format. So, like, it's okay. Tier 2 deck, it could do stuff. You could perform worse. It's fine. Then we got D-Reaper. So this one is a deck that had a lot of hype at the beginning of, I believe it was like BT9, like the beginning of it, because of the X antibody option speeding up its strategy. And it was very cool. Unfortunately now things have gotten way faster, because before a lot of people wrote it off and then were surprised that it still did well because people thought the format would be too fast for it. However, now not only are you fast, you also have really great efficient removal and stuff like Blackboard Greymon X and stuff like All Force Digimon. So while some of that removal may not impact it too much, like the other stuff you're going to be blowing up on the field will be a problem, and it's just really slow, so it doesn't really have a place in this format right now. I think this is probably like the best tier 3 deck, because like if Galactimon's in tier 3, I would have to put Reaper in a similar power level. Then we got Mastamon. I think Mastamon is honestly fantastic because it gets lots of support in Booster Set 11. If you can just dodge Blackboard Greymon X, because that is such a crippling matchup for Mastamon, they blow up all your tamers, which is super important. But otherwise, if you could dodge them and any other decks that have really efficient tamer removal, you are in a really good spot. This deck is fantastic now. You are really efficiently able to keep getting the Mastamon DNA Digivolution off now. You have powerful effects leading up to it. The stuff you play out from its effects are really useful to buy you time. It's a fantastic, efficient deck. I genuinely think this is a great deck. We're going to put it somewhere in 1.5. I think it's able to compete, and if you're able to dodge Blackboard Greymon, or if a balance comes out or something, yeah, this thing could easily go up there. It's really good support in this set. Then we got Chaosdramon. Not much of anything. I think this deck will be good eventually. It's seeing some tops right now in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. There is really good base after all the support it's gotten now. However, I think right now it is way too clunky for this format, and we're going to put it somewhere towards the top of tier 3. Again, I think this has a good base of cards to work with that could eventually be much better, but it's kind of slow. It's kind of cumbersome for this format. Yeah. They have new support to cover that kind of now, but in this format, I think it's just too aggressive and too fast for it to pay off. Maybe in another format when some of these decks have better answers. And finally, we got Security Control, represented by Venusmon. Some variation of Security Control, you know? So I think this deck is always just going to be inherently good because, like, you just want stuff that gets stuck in security, and then you're chipping away your opponent's field, and your security does half the battle. This is just such an efficiently strong deck until we have more consistent answers to turn off security checks. And to be fair, we do have some of that now. Like Blackboard Greymon X has the option to consistently trash your opponent's security because of its Metal Greymon X inheritable, so you don't have to worry about triggering an option that way, but you still have to do one swing and then hope you hit something that like bounces to hand or something like that, so like you can use the protection, because if it's like battle protection, or if you miss the turn of your DP minus protection from the Metal Greymon X, then you are vulnerable to it. So like, it's just a wait and play game, you know? You just have to time your stuff correctly when playing into Security Control or as Security Control playing against other decks. Like, the deck can adjust. It has, and it will keep doing that until we consistently get way more security option protection or security trashing. So for now, I think it is still an incredibly solid deck. 1.5 is just inherently really good into the mechanics of the game and into a lot of decks that don't have too much good comeback potential and really rely on that stack, or don't have too much protection, even if they do have good comeback potential, because then they just have to keep rebuilding over and over again, and that really sets you far back. So that is going to be the tier list from Booster Set 11. I really like how this one came out. I'm pretty confident with it after a couple of testing with friends, discussions, and taking other results into consideration. Overall, no one word is gospel. Metas will shift quickly, and like this could probably be outdated by the end of the Booster Set 11 format because things adapt and things shift so fast. But I hope this was useful for getting you started to prepare for the Booster Set 11 format, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What decks would you rank differently, and what decks did you think I did an absolutely horrible job of ranking? I'll see you in the next video, and until then, remember to stay hungry until you get a taste of victory at Nationals.